Welcome back to the Jeff and Bill Show. Joining us is Ryan Armagost. He's a Colorado state representative that brought the impeachment charges against Secretary of State Jena Griswold. Representative, thanks so much for being on the Jeff and Bill Show.
Thank you guys for having me.
So let's talk about these charges. First of all, lay them out. What were the charges you brought against her?
Well, the 6 articles we were accusing her of violating were all essentially malfeasance in office. She has injected herself in every political aspect she can for anything partisan based on her beliefs and her feelings toward people and subjects and everything else. So basically making herself unfit as the chief elections officer of the state of Colorado.
How was it received yesterday? What was her response to those? And what was the kind of room like? Give us some details. Give us a play-by-play of what happened yesterday during this impeachment committee hearing.
Well, I can tell you the mood in the room was kind of the way I had expected. The funny thing is the people that were in the audience were those that were in support of the articles of impeachment. That is not something that is very common in our capital. Usually it's the majority opinion and the majority rule, both in the audience and in the dais. But in this case, the supporters were there, very respectful of the process. You could hear grumbling and everything going on with some of the verbiage that was stated by her. But I think when we laid the groundwork for what we were bringing forward and why, I didn't expect, I can say I did expect to hear the response I did from her and from the majority on the committee. And that was basically deflecting. And everything that we were talking about in her malfeasance, she consistently and constantly deflected it to Donald Trump and insurrection. Those words came out of her mouth pretty much in every sentence that came out of her mouth. So simply pushing it off to something else and not acknowledging or accepting any of what we were saying whatsoever, not even addressing what we were saying whatsoever. It was just simply, this isn't about me. This is about Donald Trump, the insurrectionist.
Right. She put herself as this great savior of democracy, right? She looked at what happened on January 6th, and in her role as an arbiter of democracy in Colorado, she could not let that stand. Donald Trump had to be confronted. There was a trial-ish in Colorado, and then she was going to carry forth the mantle of liberty and democracy by preventing this totalitarian from being able to even be on the ballot. Now, did you all respond with kind of the hypocrisy of it all? She wants to protect democracy by preventing who people can vote for.
Yeah, and that's kind of the direction we had to keep redirecting to that point. Is this isn't Donald Trump is not on trial here. We are not on trial here. She is not on trial here. This is simply a hearing to see if it is appropriate for an impeachment of our Secretary of State under those circumstances, and how what she's accusing him of doing and affecting and destroying democracy and otherwise using his position to influence. We just kind of, how is it any different from what you are trying to do or have tried to do throughout your time as a Secretary of State? And she would not answer that question.
Talking with Ryan Armagost, the state representative that brought charges against Jena Griswold, impeachment charges against Jena Griswold. Your Democrat colleagues on that committee, what was their message yesterday?
Their message was either to, again, same thing, deflect it to Donald Trump and insurrection, and whether or not we believed that the insurrection happened, whether or not we believed Donald Trump won the election, and even readdressing or deflecting it and pushing it back on us. They were trying to accuse us of this or that and not answering questions. And we weren't answering questions that weren't relevant to the resolution. They kept trying to draw it away to Donald Trump and insurrection. And although that was part of the articles of impeachment, it was her role in calling that what she thought it was without any due process or conviction on President Trump.
Why do you think it's such a problem that the Secretary of State is as partisan as Jena Griswold is?
Well, I don't think it should be partisan position whatsoever. It shouldn't be a partisan seat, especially when so many people in Colorado do not trust their government and do not trust their elections process. She she doubles down and completely turns it into an extremely partisan seat, and she uses that to threaten and otherwise intimidate people. She uses that to block people, remove people from office, and not elected office, but even in her office. The turnover rate there, the fact that we couldn't get any county clerks to come and testify because they were in fear of animosity and retribution is telling. I mean, that screams loud and clear.
Hold on, there were no Republican secretaries of state or county secretaries, county clerks that were willing to come and testify in support of this impeachment?
Across party lines, we could not find one county clerk that would be willing to come and testify.
So, and I know Bill's got a question here, but I want to just focus in on this real quick. Do you think that's because they didn't believe in the merits of your impeachment articles, or that their fear of retribution from Jena Griswold? Like, I feel like Jena Griswold's such a dope. I'd be like, whatever, I could take her on. But I don't know. This is just conjecture, but what do you think happened with those Republican county clerks?
I think a lot of them there were some that were definitely, I don't want to be any part of this, based on their own personal reasons of their feelings of the resolution. But there were some that, and I'm not going to name names, but some that blatantly came out and said, no, I'm not going to do that. I don't think that'll end well for me.
Jeez. It's like a political mafia down there at the state capitol. That's disappointing. I'm disappointed to hear that. Bill, you had a question?
Yeah, and Ryan Armagost joining Jeff and Bill talking about the proceedings yesterday trying to impeach Jena Griswold, dies in committee. And I wanted to give voice to someone that called off air just before Ryan was here. And the caller's point was that perhaps we're being too hard on Jena. Again, caller's point, not necessarily mine. Perhaps we're being too hard on Jena because she only joined this conversation about getting Trump off the ballot after the lawsuits and after the original fight. Once it went to Colorado Supreme Court and then U.S. Supreme Court, then she started to give voice and talk about it. And the caller was just saying that the narrative that we're selling is incorrect. Can you comment to that, please, Ryan? Because for me, even though it happened, if it did happen after the original set of lawsuits, she still stuck her nose in the business and, in my opinion, overstepped her bounds. But can you speak to that?
I can indeed. And I totally agree. And that was, across party lines that brought the lawsuit as well. And she was named in the lawsuit. And what she could have simply done in that is deflected it. If she wanted to deflect it to the Supreme Court, Colorado Supreme Court, that's fine, but this belongs in the hands of Congress. They're the ones that can ultimately take a federal candidate off of a ballot. So she could have deferred it to our Congress and had that decision there, rather than doubling down and following through, being the spearhead of the movement. I think was inappropriate as our chief elections officer.
Yeah, I can agree with you because she does have the purview to decide who's on the ballot, but it is clearly outlined what she gets to decide. It's things like citizenship and when you're born and things like that. It doesn't mean you get to choose whether or not the person has committed a crime, however, either civil or criminal. That's not what the Secretary of State is allowed. And I'm fascinated. How did Jena deal with the idea in the conversation in her testimony of why, if she is given this power, why in the world she believes the founding fathers and the state would have set it up that this one office gets to be the gatekeeper over all of who gets to be on the ballot? Did she have any answer for that question?
The only answer she gave in relation to that was that, based on her opinion, it was fact that Donald Trump was an insurrectionist and was guilty and found as such guilty in the court. And even though they had a finding, there wasn't a conviction. There was no due process. She uses that as her ammunition that she was right, and she plays the victim card in this, as she does very well in any case. But this was her finding the fact that he was an insurrectionist and needed to be removed from office or
Okay.
never allowed back into office.
So basically, she went to the Democrat standby of because I said so. They like that one a lot. So that's basically what
Yeah.
she said. It's because I said so defense. Oh, great. That's wonderful.
We're talking with Ryan Armagost. He's the state representative that brought the impeachment charges against Jena Griswold. They had a hearing yesterday. It did not move past the committee on a party line vote. Democrats standing with other Democrats, Republicans challenging her leadership as state representative. I got a question for you, Ryan Armagost. At the state assembly, speaking of the other Republicans that were part of this, because it wasn't just Jena Griswold, but down at the state assembly over the weekend, unanimous censure and admonishment of Norma Anderson and the other Republicans. It would be Krista Kafer, Maria Nicolaius, who sued to remove Donald Trump from the ballot under the 14th Amendment and asked them to leave the GOP given their betrayal to our values. I know yesterday was focused on Jena Griswold being a part of this, but what do you think of the other Republicans that really kicked this whole thing off? Do you think that they should leave the GOP?
Well, I think it was an inappropriate and it almost seemed like an impulsive decision. I think we need to be careful as the Republicans. We need to be and continue to be the adults in the room. We need to stand by what our values are, and that is the Constitution. When we have our opposing party constantly battling and chipping away at our Constitution, we need to hold strong. And whether we like them or not, that is part of our Constitution, is allowing them there. With we have to have freedom of press, and they have to have their ability to get the word out to their people that may not agree with us or whatever. But I don't think that was an appropriate decision to make. I don't think anyone should be removed from office. But I think the biggest thing is the infighting is another thing we need to focus on and stop within our own party. And that's why I'm not going to talk bad about any fellow Republicans and bash them, but that's why, and that's where I stand on that.
Yeah, that's an interesting one, Ryan, because I forgot. I don't think it's Sun Tzu, but the strategist that said, when your enemy is destroying themselves, let them. And I see the Colorado GOP at times doing everything they can to make the Colorado Democrats party as easy as possible this coming fall. I think that they're being their own worst enemy at times.
Yeah, we don't need to embolden the Democrats any more than we have, and any more than they have on their own. We need to embolden ourselves. We need to unify. We need to be that front, and we need to get seats back, especially in our House here in the Capitol. We need to start filling Republican seats, and the only way to do that is to unify and have that front moving forward.
What's your response to the critique that yesterday was a waste of time? We knew that this was going to go the way it did. The Republicans were going to oppose. The Democrats were going to stand together. This was never going to make it through the committee. Let's get back to legislating down at the state capitol. What's your response to that critique?
I heard that ad nauseum yesterday, and I've heard that in a few different interviews. The fact that we knew it wasn't going to get out of committee, nothing we have that's partisan on our side or seen as partisan on our side ever makes it through committee. It never sees the light of day. We knew that was going to be the same case for this resolution. But then we get accused of it being political theater and otherwise used to further our Republican base and our voting and this and that. It doesn't do anything of that. The only thing we brought this forward for is this is the only way we in the super minority can get our voices heard. And this impeachment hearing is the only way we could bring attention and accountability to Jena Griswold. The fact that there's no other way it would have happened. She plays the victim card, like I said, on media. She plays it on her social media. But she wants to be seen as the hero of anything. And anyone that wants to take her crown away is demonized as a conspiracy theorist or an election denier or a MAGA Republican, an extreme right winger, blah, blah, blah. She just goes on and on. But instead of ever owning up to anything, it's always, no, you are. That's her playground tactic that she always uses in anything that she does. But yeah, we were told this was a sham and political theatrics and everything else that we were trying to do in there. And there was nothing theatric about it. Everything that we did was to the point. We had to keep redirecting to the point, but this is what we face on a daily basis. And to say that we're wasting taxpayer money on a hearing like this, if anyone wants to come and spend a day or 2 days or 4 months like we do at the Capitol and see the things that we have to argue on a daily basis, the ridiculous Democrat bills that we have to argue on a daily basis that pass. Some of them don't, but most of them pass. But all we do is make noise, and all that's happening is wasting taxpayer money and then bulldozing these ridiculous and horrible bills for Colorado through on a daily basis for 120 days straight. So for them to call it a waste of time and a waste of this and that, this was, I think, the one thing that we did that was worthwhile besides these bipartisan bills that make it through this entire session.
Yeah, that was weird, Ryan, that they said this was a waste of time because my point of view has been, if you felt that you were so righteous and correct, you should be trumpeting this from the top of the mountain. You should be taking advantage. Again, if you felt that you are so correct about being able to remove Trump from the ballot, you better be taking every opportunity given to you to enumerate why you are correct. This would have been a press opportunity for them to say, look how wonderfulist we are, and look at how wrong the U.S. Supreme Court was, and we have been wrong deeply. They could have done that. But no, they were afraid of this. I think that tells us a heck of a lot more about their understanding of their position than what they say publicly.
Right. Yeah, absolutely.
Well, here's a question that I have, and I don't know, Ryan, if you can be the best one to figure this out. If she had been successful in keeping Donald Trump off the ballot, and as we saw, 2/3 of Republicans in Colorado voted for him in the primary, what would have happened? I mean, go ahead, Ryan.
I think it would be a complete disaster. The fact that on every level, based on the riots with Antifa and the riots associated with January 6th and the outcome of the election, the Antifa riots were far worse than anything we've experienced on our conservative side, but those are ignored. But the fact that we are on the brink on both sides of that, of civil discourse and, just complete all-out chaos in our communities, I think that in and of itself is something that people are very careful on how things are handled, because something like that could easily spin us off into some pretty intense and serious civil discourse in our country, and especially in our state. But the lawsuits and everything that would have come from that, the constitutional challenges that would have come from that, it would have been the most costly mistaken decisions that anyone in our state or otherwise could have made if this made it through the U.S. Supreme Court and into Congress. But yeah, I can only imagine it just would have been a complete nightmare and disaster.
It would have been a complete disaster. And in part, it's, and I see this in the Democrat side. I see this also on the Republican side at times, again, because I sit as an unaffiliated. But I see that what the Democrats were trying to do in removing, and still trying in some states, to remove Donald Trump from the ballot is just doing exactly what they claim he does. They claim he's going to come in and be a dictator. He's going to come in and he is going to blow up our system of government. Yet here in Colorado, we had some people that said maybe people on the other side don't get to choose the candidate they're going to vote for. Maybe we get to decide who their candidate should and shouldn't be, which is kind of the same thing when you get into a dictatorial type of government. It's where the government is choosing the opponent. They got a problem there. Got a real problem with it.
Yeah. And like I said last time we spoke, the precedence that would set, if they can simply remove a candidate from a ballot based on personal feelings and accusations, all they would need to do is tell a false accusation against somebody and say, look, that person did this, we need to remove them from the ballot, before they're even found guilty or convicted, go through a due process. Just simple accusations and personal feelings. They don't like somebody.
Oh, it's not even accusations, Ryan Armagost, who's joining Jeff and Bill right now. It's just feelings. Because as you outlined, Jena Griswold feels this way. So the idea being that then the Secretary of State, based on their personal feelings, gets to decide who's on the ballot and off the ballot. Oh, my Lord. That is a nightmare. Yeah.
Ryan Armagost, state representative, bringing the impeachment charges against Secretary of State Jena Griswold. Thanks so much for being on the Jeff and Bill Show.
Thank you guys again.
Jeff and Bill, weekday mornings from 6 to 10 on News Talk 710 KNUS.